Son of a bitch.
Groovy.
Hey everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of It, the 2017 film that is based on half of the classic Stephen King story that was previously adapted into a television miniseries that came out in 1990, and this movie absolutely blows that film away. Now, I will say this, there are some people who don't seem to be aware of the fact that this is strictly based on half of the story, the part of the story that takes place when they are kids, which I think is a genius move because you're being told that entire story. And yes, the book was not told in that way, nor was the miniseries, but I think it absolutely works for this film because you just have to be introduced to these kids, and you don't have to be introduced to two distinct casts and two completely different timelines and all that stuff. So I thought that was a genius move, and I absolutely loved this movie. I thought it was so good, creepy, awesome. Pennywise was amazing. I will say this, when I found out this movie was coming out, I was on it because the idea of somebody other than Tim Curry playing Pennywise was just kind of like, I don't know. But man, did Bill Skarsgård just knock this out of the park. I mean, man, was he creepy as Pennywise. I mean, so good. This movie starts with the classic moment that most fans of this book or that miniseries always think of, with the moment where Pennywise is in the sewer and Georgie comes by with the SS Georgie, and he convinces Georgie to come in so he can eat him. And it's a hard scene to watch because Georgie, as a dad or as a human being, you want to protect Georgie. I mean, I'll tell you right off the hop, before I was a dad, I would have been less protective of him because I'm like, it's a fictional character, okay? But as a dad, when I see a youngster like that put in peril, it's harder to watch. But it just is such a great scene because it introduces you to Pennywise to perfection, and it's interesting because at first he's a little bit off-putting, and which works totally, don't get me wrong, but it's interesting because he has a very distinct voice in this film that is not natural, and you can tell it's kind of put on by the actor. And at first, when I was watching the film, I didn't know what to think of that, and then there's a moment where he kind of kills, and it looked kind of CG to me, which I also didn't know what I thought of that. But as the film progresses, man, did I buy into Pennywise. I mean, so creepy, and there's a selection of moments with Pennywise where he shows up that are like, oh man, he creeped me right out. I'll admit right up front that later that night when I went to bed, I worked late into the morning by myself, so I was up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I went to go to bed, and everything was dark, and I was just like, oh man, just imagining Pennywise coming out at me. And I'm a grown man, I know that's not going to happen, but the very fact that my mind went there speaks to how creepy this character was. And I mean, just I worked to perfection. Absolutely the highlight of this film, and that's saying something because I thought everything about this movie worked. And I mean, man, I love Pennywise in this film. And then you have the Losers Club, the group of kids that you see throughout this movie, and it's great because when they're all together, you can really feel this camaraderie between them. And even as the film progresses and they kind of get angry at one another and all that kind of stuff, you can feel the love that is there, and the fact that they all find fellowship with one another because they call themselves the Losers Club for a reason. They're all outcasts, but when they're together, they feel strong, and that's one of the major keys to this film. Because with the fight at the end against Pennywise, it wouldn't have worked if they were in there individually. But the key to it is them all being together, and because that's the case, that's the major part of the story. It was imperative that you felt that the connection within the group, and you absolutely do. And each of them have pretty distinctive characters. Not quite all of them. I mean, right off the hop, the lead character is played by a guy named Bill. Not played by a guy named Bill, but he's a character named Bill. He's the lead guy. He's Georgie's brother. He's the guy who has the biggest vendetta with Pennywise, even though as the film progresses, all of them are frightened of him and have reasons to want to take him down. And he's the guy who holds everybody together and pushes them to take on Pennywise. He's clearly the leader of the crew, and the guy who plays him, the kid who plays him, I should say, does a great job. He's been great in previous roles, and it was absolutely absolutely fantastic in this. And then you have the Richie that is played by one of the kids from Stranger Things, and he's the jokester of the group, and he's funny and entertaining, and you can really tell like they've been felt very much at home playing him. That it felt very natural for him to be throwing out all these one-liners, and one of the major reasons why his character works too is because there is, despite the fact that he is so sarcastic and saying such biting things about his friends, you can also feel an affection underneath for his pals, and the fact that he really does care about them and their feelings. And I think one of the major reasons why that came to be is, one, I thought the kid who played him, he's a pretty stellar actor. I mean, he was equally great in Stranger Things and had a similar connection there, but it also felt like all these kids actually had a real connection on and off screen, which I thought was very, very key. And you could really feel the affection that they had for one another, and that was most important when it came to Richie because of his style of humor, and was absolutely there. You have Beverly Marsh, who's the one female member of the Losers Club that almost all of them have a major crush on, and she has the most tragic story of all of them, other than Billy, because she is abused by her dad, which they definitely go into in a very unflinching manner in this film. I mean, we don't show any actual intimate abuse, but they definitely show him being very controlling and physically holding her against her will, and which was hard to watch for sure, but also was fairly imperative to her character, and I totally get why they did that, and you really can feel why she would be a member of this group, and why it feels for the first time protected by being a part of a club like this. I thought that was extraordinary. And you have Ben, who's the overweight member of the crew, and he's probably the biggest outcast other than Mike, because he's new to the town and he doesn't really know how to make friends, and he's picked on because of his size. And early on in the film, he spends a lot of his time in the library, and one of the major reasons why his character is so lovable is, first off, you see him when he joins the group and how much it means to him to have friends, and also he's being bullied by a group of thugs, and the things that they do to him are just hard to watch. And speaking of that group of thugs, I mean, I thought all four of them were great. I mean, they're very over the top thugs, the groups, the bullies or whatever, but the fact that they go so much farther, and especially their leader becomes such a vicious little twerp, it's very, very effective, and makes it's interesting too, because Pennywise is clearly the main antagonist of the film, but having the secondary antagonist like that gives them yet another thing to be afraid of. Really works for the movie as well. Throughout the entire film, you feel so protective of all the members of the Losers Club, because they're just getting nailed by both of these two beings that are just horrendously willing to do awful things to them. And like I said, there's other members of the Losers Club. You have Mike, like I mentioned before, who's the other biggest outcast of the group, because he's homeschooled and his dad feels that there's something very, very wrong in Derry. It doesn't want him to be interacting with any of the other kids because of it, but then eventually he becomes a member of the Losers Club as well, and it seems to be the most withdrawn of the group, where a lot of them have these kind of moments where they're like talking about how important the group is to them, and he never really has that, but at the same time it absolutely is there. You can tell how much it means to him to have friends that are willing to stick up for him, and especially because of the way he initially becomes a part of the group. I thought that was great. You have Eddie, who's the hypochondriac, or forced to be basically a hypochondriac by his mom, who is also a very distinctive character. He's absolutely always worried about his health and his well-being, and you feel protective of him as well. And I'd say the weakest member of the Losers Club has to be Stan. I mean, he doesn't say too much. He's very much in the background throughout most scenes. There are moments where he's definitely the most afraid, and that absolutely works for how the story progresses. No spoilers, but at the same time, I feel like in order for the things that happen with the group to have as much impact as they should have, I felt like they should have maybe put him a little bit more in the forefront in a few more scenes at the very, not taking the lead, not being the Billy. That would have been completely out of character, but at the same time, maybe having the group talk to him more and kind of play to his insecurities a bit more, so you become a little bit more invested in him. And then the final thing I want to talk about in this movie that really, really makes it work is there is a couple of scenes that are just so so creepy. The two that really, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's creepy scenes throughout this entire film. I mean, the moment with all the hands coming out of the door. I mean, there's so many, but there's two that really jump out at me. One it's when Bill goes down into his basement and he sees Georgie there, and Pennywise. There's water coming up, and you see Pennywise just his head coming out of the water and then coming towards him like oh man. I mean, it's in the trailer, but dear lord, it's that creepy. It just really gets to me. And even though I absolutely knew it was coming because it was in the trailer and the first trailer, which I only ever watched the first trailer of a movie that I really want to see, I knew it was coming, but even still, I had goosebumps, and I was like, oh. And then there's the other moment in the trailer that made me know that I definitely wanted to watch this because it looks so creepy. There's a moment where they're all in Bill's garage and they're looking at some information on a projector, and then all of a sudden it starts going by itself, and you see Pennywise take over one of the images. And I'm not going to say what happens in that sequence, but where it goes stands out to me by far the most of any moment in this movie. I mean, I absolutely love it. All the stuff with them in the houses were great, and the balloons where it's like in the triangle. I mean, there's so many great moments in this movie. Love this movie so much, and I know I'm not exactly saying anything necessarily all that groundbreaking. This was a very well received movie, but I'm gonna add my voice to that chorus of praise for this film because I thought it was awesome. So those are my thoughts on it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think, if you're a fan of it, if you agree with my assessment on the characters or disagree, whatever. Other than that, please hit that like button, hit that share button. It makes it much more likely that other people come check this movie, this review out, and let me know what they think, which would be awesome because I love talking about films with people. Trust me, I can talk. Other than that, please hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. It lets you know when I put out those videos, and you can come check them out. Hit me up in the comment section, give me your thoughts. Other than that, have yourself a good day.